Today's horrific tale is a piece submitted by some schmuck you guys might know. What's his name? Colin Martin. Anyways, come join us as we present to you the Ringmaster's interview. Stefan walked through the stalls away from the salesman's caravan. He guessed the Ringmaster had other business as he had not met him outside. He assumed that he had the freedom to look around and explore as he wished. He didn't imagine that there was anything that he would see here at this point that would shake his belief of the place. He had a strange instinct that everything before him was being displayed truthfully. As he thought about his experience to this point, the truths being revealed were always known deep inside. Nothing was being said or shown to him that, if he was being honest with himself, he had always believed to have existed. The reporter was well aware that there was a struggle in the world, much deeper and profound than what the religions and politicians presented. Popular culture and entertainment helped to cement the idea in him that there was a fake veneer over the goings-on in the world. There was a hunger wanting to consume everything. Money was never the issue. This thing that lurked needed people to be destitute. It needed people to be impoverished so that they would look up to those who had plenty with hatred and jealousy. All throughout his life, Stefan had known there was something more to the world than what was shown. Logically, the state of things never made sense. He, for one, never felt anger because someone had a mansion to live in or flew by private jet. It never interested him personally, but he could always see how that would appeal to some. What he couldn't get his head around was why others had to be starving or live in abject misery at the same time. However, when he did at times look into the issue deeper, while there were deserving cases, he had noticed that a lot of people created their own misery. A lot of people tried to live beyond their means, relying on trinkets or buying the latest commercial trend items to make their lives feel worthwhile. He saw that there was a relationship between these types of people, and both were caught in the same sort of trap. Those with money and fame were almost required to flaunt it, buying senseless items and extravagant spending sprees, their actions being recorded to display their subjects. Those without put themselves into debt and worked extra hours in jobs they hated so they could buy a taste of what was paraded in front of them so they could feel worthy. Of course, anyone who didn't conform would be ousted from their particular group. The star that didn't play the flamboyant game would be ridiculed in the media, find themselves not being able to earn a living. On the other hand, those that weren't well off and refused to walk around the latest labels and fashions, or buy the new style of television for their homes, were similarly abused by their peers, particularly those with children. They would be accused of not providing the essentials, and often at times reported to the authorities for neglect. It was a vicious cycle which led to misery on both sides of the coin, and Stefan decided at an early age that he wanted no part of it. Everything that he was being shown here this evening wasn't a complete revelation. He'd already known this at some level. Maybe he didn't have the words or terms to express his feelings until tonight, but he always knew. He came to a padlock area at the edge of the cluster of caravans. It was closed off, with a solid wall positioned closest to him. As he passed it, he noticed fencing along the sides. Lined up in front of the wall were a series of archery-style targets. Interesting, he thought to himself. I was just about to move when thunk! A knife materialized almost out of thin air, embedding itself in the bull. No sooner had he registered what was happening when ting! The Japanese-style shuriken quickly followed, striking the knife as it landed beside it on the bull. Thunk! Ting! This carried on as 4 more pairs of blades rammed home into the center of the target in quick succession. Damn, it's difficult to get ahead of you, a frustrated voice called out from the other end of the area. Well, I am a master of my craft. What did you expect, my friend? Came his reply. Stefan looked towards the end of the marked-out area and saw 2 figures standing side by side. One of them, the man dressed lavishly in red and black, wore a flamboyant pink shirt accompanied by a detailed embroidered waistcoat, topped off with a black fedora, again decorated with red trim. Everything about him shouted performer and entertainer. This was in stark contrast to his companion. She was dressed in a sleek black outfit. From the look of the outfit, Stefan could tell that it wasn't designed to entice or attract attention, but rather for functionality and for the ability to blend into the background. Attached to this outfit were various pouches and bandoliers. What intrigued him most as he took in the pair before him was the neatly plaited beard sprouting from the lady's obvious and beautiful facial features. The thing that was even more fascinating was the way that each braid disappeared into separate sheaths on her jacket. This seemed very intentional and purposeful. He was interested to hear the story behind this. "Ah, well, we have a guest," the man spoke. "Maybe he can referee our little contest. What do you think?" Of course," she replied. "I always welcome adjudication in the spirit of fair play. Stefan, we are glad to see you. Will you take a moment and help us settle this little contest?" The reporter was taken aback at his name being spoken from the offset. He shouldn't really be surprised, though, the thought to himself. They were of course expecting him, as he did come at their invitation at the first place. He walked from the edge of the fence towards them. "I'd be glad to help if you think I could be of some use. Forgive my tardiness. Obviously you know me. May I know your names, please?" The man laughed. "Of course you may. First of all, our apologies. We've spent millennia together, to the point that we barely have the need for formal introductions. A nod, smile, or the smallest facial expression is all that is needed to pass between us to communicate at this point of our gathered existence. You, my friend, I'm sure are finding all of this new and strange. We have all been excited for your arrival, and have felt you as you pass through this place. Already you fit in with the natural ebb and flow of our realm despite being here for a short time, hence our familiarity. As to your question..." With those words, his arm disappeared behind his back in a flash, reappearing just as quickly brandishing a handful of knives which he proceeded to fan out in hand. "I am the knife thrower, the owner of the fastest and most accurate aim in existence. I am the master of my craft, and I stand here unparalleled and unchallenged." This brought a smirk from the woman. "Not unchallenged. You will have to forgive my friend here. What he has in talent is unfortunately lost in subtleness, and it's the subtle knife that cuts deepest. Mastery doesn't always mean employing the megaphone. At times it is better to remain in the shadows, only making a display when necessary and final. That is my way, the way of the assassin." Stefan regarded the two before. Despite their striking differences, he could automatically detect the deep bond of friendship and shared experiences that had gone on between them. This made him smile. "My pleasure to meet you both," he said. "So what is the nature of this competition, and how can I help?" The knife thrower returned Stefan's smile and answered, "For a while now, we have been playfully testing each other in terms of skill and accuracy, as you may have noticed." He gestured towards the target had passed on his approach. "We have reached an impasse. A different type of test is needed." As the words left his mouth, so did the knife from his hand. Stefan felt rather than saw the projectile coming towards him. Sparks dazzled in front of his eyes as another piece of metal appeared and deflected the blade away from his head. "What the hell was that?" the reporter exclaimed as he stumbled backwards, slightly stunned from the encounter. "Well, my friend," it was the assassin speaking this time, "the competition has become predictable and boring. When we pit ourselves against each other, it has always been within our comfort zone. Hit the target, score highest and closest, and to date it has always been the same. What if we go against our natures, though, and play for something valuable that's at stake? You are very important, not just to us, but to your world. You have the potential to turn the tide against the poison that has creeped into your reality." With those words, she stepped closer to the reporter. "But how are you going to achieve this unless you truly value life? You can't do that unless you have experienced the fear of losing it. You have never fought in war or experienced any real violence in your existence to date. In that respect, you haven't been truly tested. We also have become complacent in our roles. My purpose is to end life, to extinguish the wasteful existences so that the whole may flourish. My compadre here has always created the illusion of danger. Yes, he is extremely accurate, but in the end his job is to miss. Now, we will both look at the other side of the coin. The upcoming struggle is too important for us not to. The knife thrower is going to genuinely try to kill you. He must put his full passion into this task and truly embrace his opposite nature. My role will be as protector, to deflect his blades from you and to keep you with us. Neither of this matters unless you truly embrace life. If not, you may as well be dead and allow us to focus on our efforts on finding another. Now run!" Stefan had barely begun to take off at a sprint when the first knife whizzed towards him. He felt the rush of air and loud tink when the assassin's blade intercepted. He couldn't believe what was happening. Were they crazy? Surely they didn't mean to kill him. Had he been led here like a lamb to slaughter in some kind of insane cultish prank? The thoughts raced through his mind as he sprinted and dodged. He had never done this before, but he had read enough and seen plenty of movies to know that running in a straight line would be of no use. Sparks exploded at the side of his head, and he felt the searing hot blade of the knife slice into his arm. The shock numbed the initial pain, and he felt the blood flow from the wound. Throughout his life, he had barely suffered more than a slight nick of a kitchen knife. A quick run under the tap and plaster was the gravest injury he'd received. This was different. This was frightening. He knew at this moment that this was no mere game or contest. He was running for his life, held in the balance between two combating entities. Stefan was panting from exertion as he slid underneath the caravan to try and keep out of line. The sky cracked overhead, purple and green light flashed. Something was happening to cause this intensity Stefan could now sense. He felt it. He knew that this was not a display of bravado or a test. There was desperation to these people's actions, but how could he affect the outcome? He knew he couldn't just lie where he was. That would be suicide. He took a moment to think and catch his breath while he looked around. The main circus tent wasn't far away. Maybe if he made it to there, he would be out of the firing line. Maybe he could find the Ringmaster, and that would put an end to this. The Ringmaster was in charge here, after all. Decision made, he pulled himself out from under the caravan and ran towards the tent, dodging along the rows to try and make himself a more difficult target. A spark appeared in front of him, another knife blocked by the assassin. Stefan skidded to a halt, not fully knowing what to next. The knife thrower jumped down from the top of one of the caravans, grabbed the reporter, and slammed him against the side of the wagon. His arm was raised, blade in hand. "Last knife! Now we find out. This is the moment that decides," he screamed as he started to plunge the dagger towards the reporter's head. A rope snaked around the knife thrower's arm with a loud whipping sound. The blade tied to the end whirled around, burying itself into his wrist. He screamed in pain, dropping his own knife in the process. Another whip crack sounded as the second rope shot out, this time striking the knife thrower in the throat. His eyes opened wide in surprise as he started to fall to his knees. He grabbed Stefan on the shoulder, making a gurgling sound, trying to communicate something before falling to his face dead. Stefan sat heavily onto the ground and started to sob. He didn't know why. It was not as if he knew the man. He had never seen someone killed in front of him before. This, and the fact that he'd come so close to death, overwhelmed him. He figured this was the only way he could deal with the experience. The assassin walked towards them, gathering up the rope and tucking it inside her shirt. It took a moment to register, but Stefan began to realize that it was in fact her own beard that she was collecting. She reached the body of the knife thrower and untangled the strands that were wrapped around his body. She dislodged the blades that were stuck in him and slid them back into her bandolier. Stefan stood up shakily and went to speak to her. "I'm sorry, I didn't know this was going to..." The assassin struck him hard and he fell to the ground. "We told you this was real. You left yourself exposed, running for the obvious safety without even knowing whether or not it would actually be a haven." Stefan was stunned. What started out as what he thought would be a simple interview had now suddenly transformed into a military-style training session. Not just that, he actually watched a person get killed right in front of him. His mind was struggling to catch up with the current events. He fell to his knees and started to vomit. His head was swimming now. He could barely hear the words of the assassin standing over him. "Please wait," he croaked, trying to raise his hand to plead for a moment. The assassin kicked him hard in the ribs, making him fly across the ground. "Please, please," she roared. "I just had to kill my friend. You were supposed to be the one that saves your world, saves us. You need to be strong, not this pitiful creature I see before me." She went to kick him again. "Enough!" The voice came from the magician who had materialized beside them. She launched a bolt of energy from her hand, which sent the assassin slamming into the side of the caravan they were gathered beside. "If this was a battle of the martial kind, I would have brought a soldier here, not a rider. Your rivalry has been overtaking both of your minds for eons now. It was only a matter of time before one of you came to an untimely end. The simple fact was that your egos couldn't allow the other to exist in the long run, no matter what friendship you held. She walked over to Stefan and helped him to his feet. I'm sorry that you had to experience this. However, maybe this will impress upon you how grave the current situation is. You need to absorb and record all around you. We need to become a part of your fabric if this endeavor is to be successful. The reporter got up shakily to his feet. Thank you. I honestly thought it was finished. That was the most insanity I've experienced in my life. The magician looked at him with a measure of sympathy. What you need to understand is that we are approaching a nexus point. This has been building for generations, and now we have reached the stage where the pendulum is going to swing one way or the other. She looked pensive when saying this. Never before this time have we managed to push the Theogrants further and further back from your world. Like any wounded animal, they have become dangerous, and in desperation have started attacking this realm directly. With their efforts, their poison has begun to leach into here. It affects us all differently. Jealousy has begun to replace envy, and the negative consequences you see here before you. She motioned to the unconscious assassins slumped against the caravan. If they truly manage to succeed with their new tactic, the very message that we send out will become tainted, and the work we have done over all this time will have been for nothing. Now we must go. She led him away from the scene of violence and started walking towards the main tent. As they made their way, the sky started to darken and flash with purple energy. Stefan shuddered when a wave of dread flowed over him. It has begun, the magician said. The new story must begin in earnest. They hurried to the tent entrance. Well, we hope that you enjoyed our latest horrific tale. If you want to keep up to date with future episodes, then subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page. Please also take a moment to support our contributing artists who very kindly lend their talents to this show. Check out the links in the description as to how you can do this. Until next time, my friends, keep it creepy, keep it horrific.